Hi there, my name is Matthew, and I've been making games for 20 years. In that time, I've worked across the world with a wide range of developers. I've learnt what it means to make a game, build a studio, and lead a team to the success of putting amazing experiences into the hands of players. Now I want to share that knowledge with you. In this series, I'm making my own game studio, Starcore. In the last episode, we looked at building the foundations of that studio, so we have a guiding principles to all our decisions moving forward. In this episode, we're going to be looking at creating a business plan, what it is we're going to start out for. So this is going to become a practical guide to those visions and missions we set last episode. If you missed that episode, go back and give it a watch. But if you're just interested in what it means to make a business plan from scratch for a game studio, keep watching. Let's figure it out together. So last episode, we set the vision, mission, and culture of Starcore, and we have it here in this bit with the studio foundations. But this time we're looking at this next step, which is a game studio business plan. Now, this doesn't give a template for all the things that you need. Instead, this is just a high-level business plan on putting together what are the core areas that you need to consider and put together in order to make out a more detailed business plan. What we'll be doing in this episode is doing that high level, so then I'm prepared to go and explore, investigate further to get that detail into areas that I'm uncertain of, or to find additional support or information that I may need. So using this sheet, it's a good way to, by yourself as a solo dev, or with your other founders, to go through and step by step ensure that we are considering major elements that need to be considered in a fully comprehensive business plan. That comprehensive business plan is typically a requirement for a lot of funding, whether that is through government funds, publishers, or loans. They will be wanting to look at what the business plan is. What I recommend is in this early stages, at the very start of your studio, I'm just going to look at making one for the next year. Normally a year would be your financial year, or it could be a calendar year. Because at the time of recording, we're at the end of 2025. 2026 is the next calendar year. I'm going to be looking at from now until the end of 2026. So slightly a little bit longer than a year, but it's a business plan for this early foundation stages to cover us into a full development, full production cycle in 2026. So let's start, shall we? A game studio business plan. The studio business plan defines the implementation of the vision, mission, and culture, and lays the blueprint for the processes followed by the team when they make games. The game studio business plan should be comprehensive, and it includes these areas here. So this is about bringing in all of these vision, mission, culture, these concepts into a practical implementation, how it's going to look when we're making games. So when I go through these steps and I'm referring to those things, we can easily flick back and I can remind myself and we can have a look at this together to make sure that we are keeping true to the vision, mission, and culture as well. So our studio goals. So these are objectives that should be aspirational but achievable. That sounds familiar. That sounds like practical aspiration, which we already put together in our building for the future. Where are you here? So we'll return to this section in just a moment. Studio goals, they'll be used by the team and the studio to measure, to determine success. And they should be a mix of binary pass-fail goals and sliding scale goals. So it's important to acknowledge here that goals conceptually can be different variants. Goals can be something that you achieve, that you complete. In that sporting analogy, kicking a goal is the difference between, it went into the net or it didn't. And so it's a very binary, it happened, it didn't condition. So that is one aspect of goals. But goals can also be something to strive towards and look to complete. And that's where that sliding scale goal comes into play. This is a measure of progression as a measure of success. One of the things that I have in my experience seen that has been a detrimental element to particularly team cohesion, team morale, and momentum on a project is when all of the goals are pass or fail. Because if you do not achieve them, the mental process is that we failed, we didn't do this. Even if you completed 95% of the goal, you didn't achieve it, therefore it is a failure. I strongly disagree that that is the only way to measure success. Progress and momentum are as important, if not more important, to determine the health of a team, but also the ongoing potential success of that team. And that's why I strongly recommend that when you're setting these studio goals, that you do have a mix of those pass or fail goals, but also sliding scale goals to measure your success on. Now let's look to set these studio goals. Remember when I said that these objectives should be aspirational but achievable? And that sounded like the concept of practical aspiration that we looked at in episode 1? We can go here and take these as the starting point for our studio goals in this more detailed business plan. Now, as we're only looking at 1 year, let's just take the first year one, but I could go in the future in my own time, separate to this recording, and dig deeper into these further ones. I would look to do that, particularly if there is a project that is expanding past this first year, or we're looking at multi-year investment options that aren't specific to a particular project. So we'll go over here and we'll have a look at the goals. And here we go. In 1 year, we want to release 1 game. That sounds like a really good goal. That is one of the pass-fail goals. So let's create a category here. Let's put this here. And in 1 year, so this is pass-fail goals. So in 1 year, we want to release 1 game. That is very binary. That is very much either we have released a game in a year or we haven't. We'll make sure that we'll do that. Looking into this as well, we can, in 1 year, what is another pass-fail goal? We can ensure, secure a funding solution. We'll look at what the funding strategy is a bit later, but one of the goals is that we have secured funding. We also want to have a mix of sliding scale goals. So one of the steps along the way to releasing 1 game are our milestones. So we can have a look at game milestone progress as one of these sliding scale goals. So we want to achieve 100% game milestone progress, but we're going to have that as prototype. We're going to have that as demo. We're going to have that as early access. And we're going to have that as a 1.0 release. So we will go into greater details what these milestones are when we do our game development planning. But at the highest level, these are common phrases used to talk about certain stages in a game's development. Prototype is we have proved out the fun. We know what the sort of baseline of the game is going to be. A demo is we are showing that to people or other people are playing it, getting that early feedback. It will oftentimes be a non-completed version of the game. Early access tends to be a feature complete or content complete version of the game. So feature complete means all the mechanics are there at the baseline. Content complete is all of the art, all of the music is there. There's maybe placeholders, but the experience is complete. And we are looking to just iterate on that with improvements, whether that's in quality, polish, bug fixing, final assets, those sort of things. And the 1.0 release is we have now released this to the world and anyone can access it through the platforms that we're releasing to. The difference between early access and 1.0 release typically is audience control. So in early access, that can be self-managed because you've put it in an early access program. So anyone coming on board is aware that the game is still in development. So it's a audience regulated mode of a release. You can also do early access as a closed beta, often is the term that's used, or a closed release. That is where the developer controls the audience. So you'll see people sign up and then they will be invited to participate through those platforms. You can do that through Steam with specific key access. You can do that through your own platforms, the common ones in Android and iOS, Test Flight, and in the Android development background, you can do early access through audience control there. So that's what we're looking at there, is we're putting it in front of audience, but we're controlling who that audience is. And a 1.0 release is anyone could be the audience. Anyone could purchase this and play it. I think that this is a good start for our studio goals for the first year. We want to find a funding solution, make a game, and we're also going to measure that progress on the game milestone. One of the actual things I come to think of it is I've been in these goals been very focused on the game making. But if we recall, we'll go back to our business plan is supposed to be about our vision and our mission. We've covered the mission pretty well. We're talking about the game. We're talking about what types of games. But I feel that maybe we're not serving our studio vision as much. We are telling stories. People and community is missing from our goals. How are we going to measure that? Part of our community building and bringing people into sort of like that conversation of game makers and story lovers and game players that we want to achieve from our vision is about this podcast series, this YouTube. So let's put something here that we'll put down regular updates of video content to YouTube. That is a pass and fail, but I also want to just make a note in the sliding scale goals of this sort of thing, approach as well. So community growth, just as a sort of tracker. So community growth tracker, let's have a look at that, and we'll say, so we want socials, growth, we want Discord growth, so people involved in the conversation, and YouTube growth. Hi there, Editor Matthew here. Just jumping in to say that at this point I went on to provide some numerical examples for this community growth goal. But in my explanation of it, I really confused the point I was trying to make. So I've chosen to remove this section. The point I was trying to make was that it's important to quantify through numbers or metrics what you're looking to target in your goals. So in that detailed business plan, I'll be going and providing, putting those numbers in. but at this high level, this point in the conversation, I kind of strayed away from what point I was trying to make. So thanks for your patience. Hopefully this slide and this discussion here helps illustrate the point I was trying to make. But let's head back to our podcast, Matthew, and get back to the episode. Let's just double check back in, make sure our goals fit our plan. The vision statement. We've got some people elements there. We've got some story elements there. We've got community elements there. I think right now our goals kind of do cover our vision, that we are targeting a game, it needs a funding solution, and that we're building and growing our community. We're progressing our game, we're building our community. Oh, I know one for the people aspect. Matthew doesn't burn out. It's very easy to get overwhelmed and do too much work than what your capacity allows. And this is a big thing as a game producer or a leader of a team, is ensuring that your team, the capacity of your team matches their capabilities, but also the work that is being allocated to them. As a solo dev, I'm going to be taking on every part of the work, so it's important that I have this as a goal, that our culture is human-centered approaches. So we want to center the human, in this case me, into that approach. So we want to make sure that I don't burn out. If I burn out the passion, drive, and 100% of the workforce of the studio is in a bad way, and that does not make a good business plan. So let's make sure that we add that as well. So we've got that person aspect as well. If at any point, one of the things that I mentioned in our episode 1 was, when things change, either externally or internally, have a reassessment of this. And I think it'll be important if, we get an amazing growth. Maybe we don't find funding. Maybe we get too much funding. Lots of people want to be involved in our projects. That is a good problem. That is a good problem to have. But anything changes, we can always readdress this. And this particularly, I can change that to team doesn't experience burnout. Okay, so we've got our studio goals. We've got pass-fail goals of releasing a game in 1 year, finding funding, regularly updating to YouTube, and I don't burn out. And we have some sliding scale goals. We have our game milestone progress sliding scale. We have our community growth and people involved and joining us in this journey. So I think that's pretty good to start with for our first year plan. And we can go into greater detail of what that looks like at a further time. But in this example, right now, we're just getting that high level so that we can go into greater detail. Now it's time to look at the legal structure of the business. This is going to be very, very specific to the studio that you're looking to set up, and none of this that I'm going to be talking about should be construed or read as legal advice in any way. I strongly recommend that you do go and find a legal representative, advocate in your jurisdiction, as each area will be different and have its own differences. As I'm setting up a game studio in the state of Victoria of Australia, it's important that I am aware of the legal structures. The Australian government actually has a lot of resources available, which is great when you go to register a business. And it's important to ensure that you have considered all of the ramifications and that sort of thing. So what I'm going to do in this section is say, be aware of where you're setting up your business. Consult with a legal advisor to ensure that your approach is suitable and efficient and effective and legal. I'm just going to be talking about the choices I'm making currently and what that does mean and what it does limit me for. So it's time to choose the appropriate legal structure for your business and get the foundations of this set up across all areas of the business. It's important to understand the legal aspects of game development and create contracts with team members and partners. So this is the legal setup. So for Starcore is set up as a sole trader business. This is because I am a solo dev. A sole trader business is a very specific designation in Australia. It allows me to sign up and get an Australian business number, an ABN. It means that I am solely responsible for the business. The other thing to consider is a number of funding options within state, territory, and federal government funding are open to sole trader businesses. You just need to have an ABN, they will say a lot of the time. Double check with the funding body to ensure that you are up to date. But there are some funding that does require incorporation and a corporate business structure. Now, that corporate business structure here in Australia can look a few different ways. And again, there's different sort of things that may look to be beneficial for you setting up your business. If you are a sole trader, it is very, very, very easy to set up an ABN. You go online and you can create an ABN for free. If you are creating a incorporated business, depending on the business structure, will depend on the fees that are charged when you do set up that company. So it's very important that you do consider this. The opportunities that are there as a incorporated business are wider, and they may benefit you a lot of the time because it is more likely that other businesses are likely to invest in a business rather than a sole trader business. A sole trader business is me. They're investing in me essentially as a business instead of a entity that is operating as a business. So it's very important to be across that. So I've set up as a sole trader. This means that I am eligible for some funding, but not funding that requires incorporation or a business structure. A non-sole trader business structure. It's important to note that a sole trading business is still classified as a business. If you're in Australia, if you are expected to earn, I believe it's over 70,000, it could be 75,000. I'd want to double check that. Again, double check these things when you're setting it up, is to register for GST. I have registered for GST. I was conscious of that. I am just can't remember I just can't remember where that level of expected annual income from your sole trading business is to register for GST. GST is a goods and services tax, which is applied for any goods or services you are providing within Australian states and territories. So it is important to do that. That means that each quarter to the Australian Tax Office, the ATO, I report a business activity statement, a BAS. So be conscious of that and be aware of whether or not you need to register for goods and services tax. In the UK, this would be VAT, value added tax, VAT. Other jurisdictions, they have similar things. So ensure that it is the same for where you are setting up and making your business and basing your business. Again, very important to do this at the start and be aware. This is the practical implementation of your business, where you incorporate, where you are based in the world, where your business is run from and headquarters can have a lot of benefits based on the needs of your business. And it's important to consult with legal experts to be able to advise you best on what that looks like. So while this is a talk through of what I did and just a note to ensure that your legal structure is set up, again, please go and find and talk with legal advice that have expertise in your area and jurisdiction. I have target audience here because I feel it's very important in your business plan to identify who the audience is for your business. Each game may have its own specialized, tailored target audience, and they may be different facets of this main target audience. But when you're starting out, I find it very important and very helpful to have a target audience for what your studio does. Let's return to our vision and mission here, because I think that this is going to be incredibly telling of what our target audience is going to be here at Starcore. We tell stories. We look to embrace the human perspective and human emotions. And we are also acknowledging that stories exist in a community. So Starcore's target audience is players who enjoy stories, people who enjoy stories, maybe non-game. Let's change that to non-gamers. New gamers. There we go. New gamers. Non-gamers that we want to turn into gamers. New gamers who enjoy stories. And people who are interested in DIY and community-based creative arts. So a large aspect of Starcore and the way that we're setting up is to create that community of gamers, non-gamers, people who enjoy stories. And I think that there is a target audience here for anyone interested in the creative arts, maybe not specifically video games, but other creative arts, on how you can create in the open art and creative products and creative projects with a community minded aspect there. So we're looking at our target audience, players who enjoy stories, non-gamers who enjoy stories, and people interested in DIY and community-based creative arts. Now we get to the serious part of a business plan, the money. It's important for us to, at the earlier stage, to identify how we're going to source that money and where that money is going to be allocated to. So what is our funding strategy and what is our budget, financial management sort of things that we need to be aware of and across. Let's have a look at the funding options for Starcore. Where is the money coming from? We are going to be targeting government funding programs. So for me, that is Vic Screen and Screen Australia. Other states and territories have their own screen associations, so see what is yours that may do that. Here in Australia, film and television and video games are often grouped together. So if you're in another country, another place, maybe you're uncertain of having a dedicated video games fund. But if you look for where there is a film and television fund, They may be able to direct you, or they may be able to you may be able to start that conversation in your place of residence, to start looking at funding options specifically for games in your area. I'm not going to go into the greater detail here about what those applications look like or what the funds are that are available. I'll be doing that in a future episode, so be sure to come back and check that out if government funding applications are of interest, particularly if it's for the Australian context. One thing I will note here, though, is that there are typically two different types of funding from these organizations. They are either grants or rebates. It's important to understand the difference between a grant and a rebate. Different grants will have different eligibility requirements, but that grant is an amount of money awarded to that project, to that team, to that studio to work towards a specific outcome. A rebate is an amount of money given to a project or a team, studio that has met a certain amount of expenditure on development. Different jurisdictions have different caps and minimum spend, but it's important to know that grants typically are available to a lot more eligible teams, and particularly in the indie development sphere, grants are typically the way to go. Rebates may be a good approach, but you really need to ensure that your project is meeting the minimum spend amount, which is different for different jurisdictions. There are also different requirements for the application of that. So it's the main thing just to take away from this is that grants are money awarded to get you to the next level. Rebates are money coming back that you have or you plan to spend. Where are new revenue streams? Once game is launched, is released, sales. We could look at merchandising, ? Merchandising is a very risky endeavor. It often requires a large outlay or a lot of time for fulfilling those orders. You can work with merchandising partners, but they may introduce different complexities that may not be something your studio is ready to address or handle. I've put it here with a question mark so that I do consider it. Maybe there are some things we can look at, but I'm not convinced it is the way forward right now. But in the first year, let's have a think about it. What will games need to be aware of when defining their game plans? We have not secured funding. Development needs to be self-sourced from Matthew. Any additional support or consultancy or contractor needs to be heavily considered until funding is secured. This means that I don't start signing an artist, signing up these people, talking contracts until we've got that funding. It's very easy to go, oh, I'll just get an artist to do this, and then you're going into your own money and resources, thinking that you'll get funding, and then the funding may not eventualize. So we can start those conversations, but it should just be a expression of interest rather than talking about any sort of further agreements or statements of work. So for at this level, when I'm looking at my game dev planning in a future episode for our first game, I might identify some areas where I may want to do this. I could go and start sourcing quotes for how much it might be. That will then help inform that funding, but I can't and I shouldn't start signing contractors on the promise of funding coming in. It's much better at this stage with being self-funded and with no other funding secured, that I am only making our game plans for things that I can achieve. So yeah, there we go. That's one of the limitations, is we are a solo studio currently. Expansion is dependent on funding or revenue streams, on funding gain, on securing funding or adding stable revenue streams. What are the opportunities? Huge opportunities for learning. I'm going to have to be the programmer. I'm going to have to be the artist. I'm going to have to be the community manager. These are areas that I have dabbled in at some point in my career across the last 20 years, but I haven't been wholly responsible for. As is often the case for a lot of people in production, we can kind of pitch in to help out where it's needed. I've done a little bit of everything, but I've never been wholly responsible for any of the disciplines of engineering, design, art, sound. I have done hobby projects in sound design, so I've got a bonus there, slightly ahead there, and video editing. But all of this is going to be learning, which I'm excited for, to be honest. I'm really excited to be getting hands-on experience in these games rather than just talking with experts and understanding and knowing how things work. I'll actually be the one who's going to be doing it. So that's a great opportunity there. Great personal achievement. Pride. Oop. So if I am able to do this and make a game by myself, that's a huge achievement. That is something that I'm going to be proud of and say, I did it. And so that's a huge opportunity to go, hey, look, I set out to do something. I challenged myself. I learned these things and I got this game out. So it's a great opportunity there. So these are the things that, I'm going to be aware of when I'm moving on to the next step for budgets and financial managing. But I've already targeted where we're going to get some money from. I've thought about some new revenue streams potentially. I've made sure that we're aware of the fact that when we're making a game plan, it all has to be done from me. I've also just bullet pointed out the limitations. So explaining there that the expansion is dependent on funding coming in. But the great opportunities here, because all of this is really tough, right? I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say anything. If you're setting out to be a solo dev or do indie development by yourself before you've secured that funding, it is a tough road. So please return to these opportunities. See where that sort of light is. Not at the end of the tunnel, but it's lighting your way through the tunnel. Getting funding and releasing a game and it's selling a million copies and breaking Steam is the light at the end of the tunnel. But these things here, these opportunities are going to be the things that I'm going to be returning to and going, hey, Matthew, yes, it's tough, but look at how great your artwork's become. Have a look at how much you've learnt about this game engine and how it operates and how to program for it. And then when I meet those milestones, taking a moment to reflect and go, I did it. I've summited this part of this huge climb that I'm on, and look at the view from here. So it's important to acknowledge and return to these as well and have them as part of the business plan as well. So when we're looking at the budget, we should be creating a realistic budget and track those expenses carefully. Have a think about how much things are going to cost, what are our current finances. Ensure that you've got up-to-date balance sheets, cash flow statements, and profit loss sheets. What tech, equipment, and software do you use for your business? Where are you based, and where is your office located, if that's relevant? So this is essentially the common sort of areas of expenditure. So the number one expenditure for a lot of businesses is salary, aka how much is everyone paid? So this is where it's interesting as a solo dev. Some funding does not allow expenditure of founders' salary to be counted towards the application. It is very important to understand that. I've noticed that this is mostly in rebates, not grants, but rebates. But it's important to understand. As I am not paying myself because the company has not got funding yet, I am still tracking the hours that I am spending. This is going to give me an idea of what the salary cost of my work could be, which is going to inform my funding applications. I use a time tracking tool called Toggle. Not a sponsor. They're just a tool that I use to help track my hourly expenditure on certain things. You can just do it as a personal thing and track how much time you're spending on your project. Your time as an indie dev, your time as a solo dev, your time as a developer of any type when making games has value and should be adequately compensated. So when we're creating a budget, particularly a budget for any funding or grants, it is incredibly important that you do pay yourself adequately and suitably for what it is you are contributing, but also the value of the work that you are doing. For the Australian context, it is important to understand that legally there is an award rate for game development now. This is something that the Game Workers Australia Union has pushed for and been very strong at achieving. What an award rate is, it is the minimum amount that someone making video games has to be paid. You can find the award rate on the government websites, and I'll include some extra details in the description, along with other links mentioned. But it's important to understand that that is the minimum amount you should be paid. I'll be doing a more detailed budget breakdown, and we'll be going through how that budget looks, and I'll go into detail there. But I bring this up because even if there is no award rate for your category in where you're based, most places will have a minimum wage. Some places also use the terminology minimum living wage. A good example is London had a minimum living wage that is different to the minimum pay, like the minimum wage from the UK government. So when you're making your budget for your salary, make sure that yourself and your other founders and anyone else contributing are being paid adequately, suitably, and most definitely the minimum requirement that your area of operation requires. We also need, actually, let's put this here. So, Starcore budget inclusions. Salary for Matthew. We need technology, so we need a game engine license costs. If we're going to use a game license a game engine that has a licensing or a cost, this is an important consideration when you're looking at your game development planning. We also want to look at hardware. We also want to look at any art software license costs. We also want to look at production tooling license costs. We also want to look at platform license fees. So some platforms require payment of a developer account or for each submission of games on the platform. So it's important to track that in your budget and include that as well. So these are the main areas that I'll be looking at the start as we build out that contractor payments. You may have a loan, which is a loan repayment. I don't. So I don't need to put that into things that I need to include. So these are the main areas when we're looking to start it up that we can do that, create that budget from. Our current finances, as we said, is current finances are low to nil. Budgets will be prepared to support funding applications. Any development is done by Matthew. So in terms of balance sheets, cash flow statements, profit and loss sheets, there is a lot of resources out there. Again, for the Australian context, if you look at a small business or sole trader, on a lot of the government websites, there actually are a lot of resources there. They have a template for a profit and loss sheet. They help you with balance sheets and cash flow statements just to cover a lot of these things. One thing. Insurance. Do you have insurance costs that you need? That will be there. Accountants fees. All these things that are coming to mind when I think about what things are included in my profit and loss sheet. So these are things to be aware of and to ensure that you're covered. Covering in your budget. But yeah, that last one, where are you based? Where is your office located? That's going to inform what things you need to budget for and what you need to be aware of. Like I mentioned, the salary. It's important that you are paying yourself a suitable amount as much as it is the employees or contractors that you have as well. It's very easy for a founder to go, I will, it's very easy for a founder to do one of two things. One, it's my company, I'll pay myself the most. Or it's my company, I should be sacrificing the most. Both of those methods lead to, longer term problems and worries and concerns. So setting out to start with paying everyone, including yourself, a fair and composite compensation. So paying yourself a fair compensation as well as all your employees or contractors is incredibly important to do, and including yourself there, because you are important, and your contributions should be compensated accordingly. So the final things to have in your business plan, certainly as a core level, are a marketing plan, and then any sort of business or operational things that you want to include. A marketing plan is important because this is about how people get to know your business and what you're doing. And then the business and operations is just sort of additional support things that maybe you want to explore depending on the size of your operation. So what's the marketing plan? This can be different for each game. However, having an overarching marketing plan or principles can help guide and inform decisions for each game while remaining cohesive. So the Starcore marketing plan will include YouTube content, showing behind the scenes how the studio and its games are made. Social Discord, let's say Discord, a space where the community can gather to discuss game development and storytelling practices, principles, a space for knowledge and experience sharing. Social media to drive people to YouTube content. YouTube's going to be our central hub here for a lot of this marketing plan. Discord is going to be our communication space, and our social media is there to support that, to bring people. This is about awareness of Starcore. It's very easy to be overwhelmed and try to do everything. That's why I'm focusing on the YouTube content, as this is where I feel the strongest way to demonstrate the principles of Starcore, of building community, of telling stories, is to document and share the story of Starcore and how we're making games and the games we're making to a community. That's why YouTube is the center here. Discord is there as a place where I would like to gather a community and we can have that conversation. And social media is at the moment the sort of flags, the hands waving, going, hey, check this out. If I were to put in as much effort as I'm doing on YouTube and recording these episodes and editing them and putting them all up as I do into the social media, I would not have enough time to make the studio, and I would not have enough time to make any games. Community management, social media is a very important and very skilled work. And right now, as a solo dev, I want my focus to be on creating the studio and starting to look for funding and creating our first game, and starting to bring people to YouTube. So that's what our marketing plan is going to be, is essentially, let's drive people to the YouTube. Let's people be aware of the story that we're telling, not just the story of our games and Starcore, but the behind the scenes stuff, this interaction. And let's provide a space on Discord where people who want to participate in a dialogue with myself or with, other like-minded people, that can happen as well. So that's what our marketing plan is going to be. Let's fix that. Too many capital letters. So YouTube centered with Discord support and social media for awareness. I put this here for business and operations. So what other areas do you need to cover? Different businesses are going to have different conditions or setups and priorities. Here are some sort of things just to be conscious of. So there are additional and optional opportunities that may help, but not all game studios may find this helpful or not. These should be revisited and discussed if your circumstances change. So a couple of options are engaging in industry conversations and participate in the conversation. So building relationships with other game developers and industry professionals. That could be from an industry body perspective. Conferences. Community is an important part of Starcore. It's part of our vision. It's part of our mission. And that's why, creating those community spaces on Discord is important. It's why my engagement in a lot of conferences and events, whether that be online or in person, is something that we are going to look to do. It is part of our 5-year future plan as well. So that's where we're going to focus because it is more closely aligned to the type of company that we are and as a solo dev. However, having an advisory board may be more suitable for you if you are a larger company. Maybe you're going in with investors at the get-go. Maybe you're taking that step and adding an investor into your studio. This can be an advisory board of people who have experience in the industry already. So these are people who can help your business and your studio ensure that they're covering and across all the areas that they need to be, that they have enough expertise, that are invested, maybe not financially, but certainly emotionally or work wise, professionally into the studio as well. So that's an option as well. An advisory board could be an advisory board of one. It could be an advisory board of a board of directors level, depending on the size of your studio and your business plan and opportunities leading forward. But right now, we are just going to focus on Starcore will be focused on building and participating in game development community activities. We will contribute to and learn from the conversations and discussions happening in our spaces. So that's what we're going to be focusing on for the other additional things. Hello again, it's Editor Matthew. When putting this episode together, the conclusion was a little bit messy and hard to follow in a number of sections. So what I've done is I took out the things that we worked on in that previous episode and I put them into this one sheet. This is how I'm going to go forward to create the more detailed business plan. So I'm just going to re-record the conclusion with this. Hopefully it'll make it clearer to follow and clearer to understand. I've also started to document out the budget in a more clear way and put some initial numbers that I've researched in there as well, so we can kind of have a look at that as well as an example of a framework of this high-level budget of the business plan. So the Starcore business plan for 2026 that we put together in the episode, covering November 2025 through to the end of December 2026. The studio goals we set. We set the pass-fail goals, the binary did it happen or did it not happen goals of in 1 year, we want to release one game. We will secure a funding solution. We'll do regular updates of video content to YouTube, and we'll ensure that Matthew doesn't burn out. And sliding scale goals, what we've done are these are the ones that are measurements of success and momentum. And we have set these as achieve 100% game milestone progress. And the milestones we will be targeting are prototype, demo, early access, and the 1.0 release. And the community growth tracker. We will track our growth on socials, Discord, and YouTube. As mentioned before, I will be doing a more researched and detailed breakdown of what those metrics are going to look like. And when I have put them in the business plan, I will be sharing that with everyone at that time. The legal structure. Starcore is a sole trader business registered in Australia and trading with an ABN, that is an Australian business number. Important consideration, I am eligible for some funding, but not funding that requires incorporation or a non-sole trader business structure. The target audience for Starcore. Starcore's target audience is players who enjoy stories, non-gamers who enjoy stories, and people who are interested in DIY and community-based creative arts projects. Our funding strategy. We will target government funding programs. The two that we will be looking at are Vic Screen and Screen Australia. Once the game is released, sales will contribute to cash flow and future plans. And merchandising is something we may look into in year one, but is a stretch thought at this time. When designing and developing our games, we need to be conscious of the fact that we haven't secured funding yet, that all the development needs to be self-sourced from Matthew, and any additional support or consultancy or a contractor needs to be heavily considered until the funding is secured. Our limitations are that we are a solo studio currently, and that expansion is dependent on securing funding or additional stable revenue streams. The opportunities, the things that we are going to come back to and remind ourselves of and celebrate the success and milestones when we achieve them, is that this is a huge opportunity for learning for me. And that I'll get great personal achievement and a source of pride from going through every step of the way. And I'm so happy that you're here joining me on this journey as well. That budget that I was talking about, I've separated it out. So this is to the end of 2026. I've made a column for the estimated amount and also a column for the reality amount. So when we know how much we actually did spend on this, we can track it there and see how accurate we were to our budget. This is, again, at the high level. We can do a further breakdown in other documentation, including the profit and loss and business activity statement style documentation that I linked in the video description and also showed on screen in those sections in the episode. But the salary, we looked at the award rate, and this is roughly what it comes out to for someone at my level. The superannuation is a requirement for employees to be paid. As a sole trader, I am not required to do super. So this is an area that I will be looking at, is the balance between salary and super, what that looks like as a part-time, what that looks like as a month-to-month amount as well. And those are going to be broken down into the higher level detailed budget. These numbers are here as that guiding line of this is what the minimum requirements as a full-time employee would have me at. The game engine license, I looked into it. I'm planning to use Godot as the engine for this first project. So we'll see how that goes. But that is a open source, free to use engine for our purposes. So I've put 0. Art software license, I plan to use Affinity. Affinity is currently licenseless and is a free for the purposes we are currently intending to use it for. Production tooling, I've set as 0 as well. I plan to use Trello and Miro, their free service level, as that should service the requirements of the studio. As a reminder, as a solo studio, a lot of this is going to come cheap or free. You just need to ensure that you are covering the bases and that you are getting the use out of them that you want. And I'll go into further detail as we use those tools through the game development process. So 3 platforms that we're looking to target for this first game are Steam, iOS, and Android. So I went and had a look at how much it costs to put a platform a license fee for a title. For Steam, it's about $100 in Australian dollars. This is off the exchange rate currently, so that's why I've put these in as nice round numbers that are slightly more than the exchange rate, just so that I can get a ballpark figures that are very close to what they will be. iOS developer license is about $180 Australian, and the Android platform license will be about $50 Australian. So some things to just track there and consider. I haven't gone into these, but I did target 2 contractors in the breakdown. I would like to look at an accessibility contractor for this first game. And as a little bit of a tease, a news media consultant for this first game. I wonder why that might be interesting. Then I've also put insurance and accountants fees here as well, just so we can track them. Some things that we need to be aware of for the budget considerations. Current finances are low to nil. Budgets will be prepared to support funding applications, so they'll be further, developed for those funding applications, and any development is done by me. The Starcore marketing plan will include YouTube content as our primary focus and arena, showing behind the scenes how the studio and its games are made. Discord as our gathering place for community and dialogue, a place where the community can gather to discuss game development and storytelling practices and principles. It's a space for knowledge and experience sharing. And then social media is there to raise awareness of Starcore and what we are doing. It's to drive people to YouTube content, and at this stage, early stage of the studio, is a tertiary arena for us to engage with. The additional business and operations considerations. Starcore will be focused on building and participating in game development community activities. We will contribute to and learn from the conversations and discussions happening in our spaces. So that is what that framework, that high-level business plan that I go and add extra detail to. But this tease of a news media consultant. Next week we'll be going into game development planning, what your game plan will look like, and maybe we'll find out why I've thought a news media consultant would be interesting to have as part of that project. I look forward to seeing you next episode.